it's to me it's absolutely normal that you're so successful pushing this brand, because first of all it comes, like you've mentioned, from over 100 years of tradition within your family, and then it's something that this part of Europe has always been curious about, the American dream. That, and I love your place, Kraig, because it it really takes it to the what I understand as the golden era,
well,
the 50s, the 60s.
It's all authentic. It is me.
Yeah.
You know, like people are like, do you decorate? I'm like, I gotta have a decorator. I'm like, they're not gonna understand. This is all stuff that even the replica stuff, like the posters, there's stuff I grew up seeing, you know, at the barbershops and stuff. And like I told you earlier, this chair I'm in is 1941. The one you're in is 1930. You know, different items around here. Some of it's, you know, original stuff. No, this is like my home, and I push the hospitality a lot. And I think because of that, I mean, it's I don't ever want to use anybody. And I think because of that, obviously, sometimes you're definitely getting a benefit from stuff sometimes, you know. I'm not going to bullshit somebody into that, you know. So because of that, again, as I was telling you, which we can see the room, my waiting room, which is a bar when I want it to be a bar, which is really cool because I have no responsibilities of it being a bar. It is when I want it to be. But I've had people, again, that have sold out stadiums, you know, in there. And I have everybody from, well, when things are open, students coming in here, to business people, to politicians, to entertainers, you know. And one of the things, I love about this country and the people in this city in particular, is it's a big village. And everybody knows everybody. Instead of 6 degrees of separation, it's about 2. And if you want to meet somebody, if you're outgoing enough, it's not so difficult. The Czechs are very approachable. A lot of people, they give them shit sometimes. I'm like, no, Czechs, they're awesome. It's like, they're not quite like where I grew up, where you don't know a stranger. Everybody makes eye contact and says hello.
Yep.
But they're open. But, you know, especially as a foreigner, you got to kind of sometimes, or most of the time, you know, maybe bridge that gap. But even so much as, like, I knew no one really when I was moving here except for the guy that I was, you know, renting the chair from over there, Jonathan. But now, my friends, I've got to be I don't know if I'm like the court jester or what, and I haven't seen him as much with all this stuff going on, but I got to be friends with Václav Klaus Sr.
Yeah.
And I met him at the pool, and it's one of the few Czechs I would recognize. I'm like, shit. I told my buddy, I'm like, I think that's Václav Klaus. He's like, who's that? I'm like, damn, you're worse than me, man. I was like, that's one of the founders of this country. And I got out of the pool and Googled him on my phone, just stuff like, shit, I'm almost positive, you know? And he's like, what would he be doing here? And I'm like, this Prague in Czech Republic is very likely, you know, this private pool. And so I went up, introduced myself. And people, because I was interviewed by some Czechs before, like, you just went up to him? I'm like, well, yeah. I said, he's another guy. I said, no, a brilliant one, and I respect that. But, yeah, you know. And I said, being an immigrant, moving here and getting to meet and hang out with one of the founders of the country, I mean, that's not going to happen many places.
That's true.
And we just hit it off. And then we were sometimes 2 or 3 times a week hanging out, just him and I, or him and I and a friend, having a drink and very candid conversation. And but if you can meet people like that, and another really nice guy, I didn't know who he was when I cut his hair, Matcha Rupert with Monkey Business. And he's on TV, very popular, you know, he's played with all kind of people, nice guy. And after he left, some friends were like, you don't know who that is? I'm like, I don't know, shit. He said he played in music or something. But, I mean, a lot of people play music. And, you know, they're like, no, he's pretty popular. So, you know, I looked up on YouTube. I'm like, oh, shit, I like this because it's like a funk-type music. And he even told me later that even James Brown's manager gave them kudos, you know. So I messaged him. And I'm like, hey, man, how about if I keep you looking good and you help me with some social media? And he's like, sounds good. So we've been, you know, he just lives around the corner, right? I see him on a regular basis. But, you know, it doesn't have to be anybody with a name or anything like that. It doesn't matter. But it's just amazing that coming here, not knowing anybody, I still can't speak Czech. You know, I know a few phrases and a few words. Not my strong suit, you know. But there's opportunity here. And if you go out and you're genuine, you know, people, right. I think I've been welcomed with open arms here. I can't believe the half the
right.
stuff. You know, I had 2 TV shows and I don't speak Czech. You know,
right.
So.
If you want to mention them as the Eurovision?
Yeah, one was a Eurovision show it was a project with Česká televize. And I got to be friends with Jan Bors, who was the producer for that, and Star Dance. and some other projects, you know. So Stardance, one of the most popular shows in the country. But again, I listen and look and always look for opportunities. And again, I'm not shy. And I always ask people for stuff without, you know, it's like I don't want them uncomfortable to say no, but it's like doesn't hurt to ask. And most of them over here aren't used to being asked. So Elena, the first time Jan came in, my barber Elena had cut his hair. And of course, the whole conversation with them's in check. And after he leaves, she goes, you know, because I'd already been doing videos and things. And she goes, that guy produces the most popular show in this country. And he said they have a hard time finding male dancers. So I said, what about you? And so he asked a little bit and stuff. And so she told me this after the fact. I'm like, he actually was slightly open to this. I'm like, give him his contact info. So I just wrote him. I'm like, hey, heard about your conversation. You know, I'd like to speak to you about it. So we did. Now we know each other quite well over the years. But he said, oh, we would consider it. And if you want to be famous in Czech Republic, you're on that show. Everybody's going to know you. However, you have to speak enough Czech for a live interview. I'm like, oh, shit, I don't think that's going to happen. I said, I don't want to put limitations on myself, but yeah, I don't see that really happening. So I'm like, okay, how about this, Jan? I'm starting this video series. How about if I interview you, and then you bring one of your dancers in here, and we'll do my own star dance in my barbershop? He's like, yeah, we could do that. So they brought Jan Onder, their champion and choreographer, and then I know this other singer-dancer, kind of pop star, Kate Mothel. And because I didn't want to dance with a dude, so Kate showed up. So in my little barbershop, I've got the most popular show. They come in, and I'm fine making fun of myself. And you could easily laugh at me trying to dance on this thing. So you know, I did that in here. And then I never heard of Eurovision before I moved here.
Yeah.
And that might be my phone binging. I never heard of Eurovision before I moved here. And then I found out he was producing Eurovision. And then I found out, you know, the audience is bigger than the Super Bowl. I'm like, well,
really?
Crap. Yeah. It's like 200 plus million people. And, you know, that's where ABBA got their big start and stuff like that. You know, they're actually going to try bringing it to the U.S. now. You know, of course, it's just big business. They're going to do it there. I think they're going to do an Asian one, stuff like that as well. Okay. But anyway, the few years ago when they were going to Kiev, he was telling me more about it. And then Martina Barda, who we've got to be good friends, she represented the Czechs in Kiev. And she's actually a jazz singer, and she lives in Berlin, but she's from here. And but I hadn't met her yet, and I was asking him, I'm like, hey, after the Eurovision in Kiev, what's the chance of getting her to sing in my barbershop and me interview her? He's like, I think that's a great idea. So 2 weeks after Kiev, she released a new live version in my shop. Yeah. And then I interviewed her in the chair a little bit. And
the blonde girl?
No. You see pictures of the blonde? So. That's former Miss Germany. Okay. And I met her through Martina. Okay. Yeah, that's Miss Germany. Okay. See, you never know who's going to show up in here. Yeah, you know. So, but yeah, it looks really good when good-looking women in a traditional men's place. And I was like, Sveta, you're gorgeous. Hop in a chair. Let me get a couple little photos. But no, I met her through Martina. So we trying to feed each other, you know, kind of support each other in other ways. And that's how Lynn Turner from Deep Purple, she introduced me for that and got him in here to me. But I'm always, you know, not everything's going to work by any means, but I'm always putting out feelers, I'm always trying to help other people do the same type thing. And again, the more contacts you make, the more happens. So I'd done the thing with...
that must have been amazing for you, because I think you're listening to that kind of music, right? So
I listen to mostly classic rock and blues and stuff like that.
So was it like meeting...
Yeah, well, to be honest, I wouldn't have guessed his name right off the bat. But now him, as opposed to the Eurovision show, I'm doing 8 interviews with people there's very little for me to find out about. And I know shit about Eurovision, which made the interviews different. But when you're doing 4 in a row, you're only going to be so creative, you know. True. And then they were feeding me some lines and stuff as well. But we got quite a bit of leeway. The best episode of the Eurovision show, one of the guys couldn't make it because of weather, flying in from Switzerland, I think. And that was just straight out live. They're like, "Can you interview him for hit 20 minutes?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And that actually ended up being because his English was good and he had a good sense of humor and he was very open. They were all very nice and they're all extremely talented. They all played 4 songs each, I think, in the bar. But with Joe Lynn Turner, that opened up doors for other things. So he came in, and that's actually one of the reasons I think Jan gave me the Eurovision show. Because that show was in English. Because once you vote for people in your country, you can't vote for your country. So that was to get them more information about them to the other people. So the Joe Lynn Turner, again, I'm not shy, and I treat people with respect. But I think now that I am approaching middle age, I can joke around with guys like Klaus or Joe Lynn Turner and stuff. If I was 30, it might come off as more disrespectful.
True.
But I tease a lot, so I just tease them like I do my buddies, So, and I started right off the bat with him. The only reason I was really nervous was they were behind schedule, and the producer was saying, "Look, their producer, they're like, you got 10 minutes, 15 tops." I'm like, well, I'm not like a seasoned interviewer, in a way I've done it a lot because I've had so many people in my chair over so many years. But I'm like, all right, shit, we'll do what we can do. We got the, stuff here. But we hit it off immediately. Him and his wife came in, we started joking. They're like, "Oh, this is an operating shop?" I'm like, well, yeah, that's mostly what I do. This is a, side thing. So we went into the bar and, I kind of asked him, I'm like, a lot of the guys aren't drinking or stuff anymore. I'm like, "You ever have a bourbon?" "Yeah." So I broke out one of my special ones and we just hit it off, And I'm like, "Oh, I guess we should do this in front of the camera." Well, I think it was an hour and a half. And they still didn't want to leave. And the producer was like, please, we got to go, And then his wife and him, they told me twice, they're like, "This is one of the best interviews we've ever had, and we need to go to dinner, And then I told him, I'm like, "Look, I'm not going to say I'm a singer by any means, but I'm going to sing with you." Because then I basically, vicariously, I've sung with Deep Purple and Rainbow. So we just hummed the end of Hush, And then I'm like, "Okay, I'm getting up on stage with you, and I'm going to get with your backup singers. You can turn my mic off." I said, "But that's a bucket list." And he's like, "I don't care. You got the look." And the producer like, "I don't care." And when I got there, the only reason I didn't do it was I think it might have been a benefit concert, but there was at least 10 groups, and they were also playing with each other, and they had been rehearsing all that stuff. And we've got the saying, "Don't wear out your welcome." And I'm like, yeah, for a totally self-indulgent thing, I'm going to be completely in the way. So I said, "When you come back, I'm getting up. Maybe I'll practice a song before, or actually know the lyrics of Hush before you come back or something." You ask people, joke around, and worst they say is no. But most people want to say yes. I want to say yes as much as I can help people. And, you just never know. So that's how that.